Hey, how's it going guys? Sensus here. And today we're going to be doing an Assassination Rogue PvP guide. I'll be going over talents, honor talents, artifact weapon traits, openers, rotations. Now one thing I won't be going over, much like my Subtlety Rogue guide, is I won't be going over the spell changes because I already covered that in my Assassination Rogue pre-patch guide. I'm just going to leave a little annotation up on the screen if you guys want to go check that out. And with that, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, starting off with talents. Your basic setup should include Master Poisoner, Subterfuge, Vigor, Elusiveness, Internal Bleeding, Exsanguinate, and Mark for Death. Starting off with Master Poisoner, it increases the damage done by all your poisons by 30%, and it also increases their non-damaging effects by 20%. Now as far as wound poison goes, it'll only increase the healing reduction on that by 5%, so instead of reducing that target's healing received by 25%, it'll reduce it by 30%. Next we have Subterfuge, which will allow you to use stealth abilities 3 seconds after you come out of stealth, and it will also cause Corrode to deal 100% increased damage and have no cooldown when used from stealth or 3 seconds after stealth breaks. Next up we have Vigor, which increases your maximum energy by 50, and it'll also increase your energy regen by 10%. Next we have Elusiveness, which causes Feint to mitigate 30% of all damage taken for 5 seconds. And next we have Internal Bleeding, which causes Kidney Shot to deal bleed damage per combo point over 12 seconds. Next up we have Exsanguinate. It's an instant ability with a 45-second cooldown. Now they actually nerfed this from pre-patch. In pre-patch in PvE, it caused your bleeds to bleed out 400% faster and 200% faster in PvP. Now it only causes your bleeds to bleed out 100% faster in both PvP and PvE, but I still feel it's the one that you want to pick out of all the other choices on this row, because even after the nerfs, when used alongside Vendetta, you could still deal some pretty heavy damage to your target. And lastly, we have Mark for Death. It's an instant ability with a 30-yard range and a 1-minute cooldown, and it causes you to mark your target, instantly generating 5 combo points, and if that target dies before the cooldown is up, the cooldown resets. Now let's go ahead and move on to honor talents. Okay, now your basic cookie cutter honor talent setup should include Gladiator's Medallion, Reinforced Armor, Maneuverability, Unfair Advantage, Deadly Brew, and System Shock. Now if you play an Orc for the first tree, another option will be to pick up Relentless for 3v3s because it'll diminish all CC on you by 25%, and this actually somewhat stacks with the Orc racial passive Hardiness, and that alone diminishes all stuns on you by 20%, so that stacked with Relentless will diminish all stuns on you by 40%. So that's definitely an option, but the safe way to go if you're anything else is with Gladiator's Medallion, and all that really does is reduce the cooldown on your trinket from 3 minutes to 2 minutes. Its effect is still exactly the same as Honorable Medallion. It'll allow you to break any sort of CC on your character while in PvP. Next we have Reinforced Armor, which increases your health by 10%. Next up we have Maneuverability, which suppresses all movement impairing effects for 4 seconds when sprint is used. Next we have Unfair Advantage, which will cause all crits on any target that has lower health than you to have 20% increased damage for 3 seconds. Now this is a really good talent to run if you know you're not going to be the kill target in the comp that you're playing, but if you feel that you're going to be the kill target, Honor Among Thieves will be the way to go over Unfair Advantage because you should get more out of it in that kind of situation. Next we have Deadly Brew, which causes Deadly Poison to also have Wound Poison's reduced healing effect. And finally we have System Shock, which will cause Casting and Venom with at least 5 combo points on a target afflicted by Garrote, Rupture, and a lethal poison to take a big chunk of nature damage and reduce their movement speed by 90% for 4 seconds. Now right now it could be a little bit subjective to say whether or not System Shock is actually superior over Creeping Venom, because with Creeping Venom you get kind of a similar effect, but instead of having direct nature damage dealt to that target, it deals nature damage over time, and you don't need as much upkeep to get the effect out of it. But personally I prefer System Shock because it's nice to have that big chunk of damage that gets taken off right away. Each talent has their pros and cons, but I'd say either are viable. Now let's move on to artifact weapon traits. Starting off with Assassination's artifact weapon ability, Kingsbane. It's an instant ability that costs 35 energy and has a 45-second cooldown, and it'll immediately deal nature damage to your target as well as put a dot on them that'll deal nature damage over 14 seconds. And each time you apply a lethal poison to a target affected by Kingsbane, it'll increase Kingsbane's damage by 15%. Blood of the Assassinated causes Rupture to have a chance to have 100% increased damage for 10 seconds. Gushing Wound increases damage dealt by Rupture by 10%. Master Alchemist increases damage dealt by Deadly Poison and Wound Poison by 15%. Bag of Tricks causes Envenom to have a chance to drop down a small AoE on your target's location that will deal nature damage to all enemies in it over 6 seconds. Shadow Walker reduces the cooldown on Sprint by 10 seconds. Master Assassin reduces the cooldown on Vendetta by 30 seconds. Fade into Shadows reduces the cooldown on Cloak of Shadows by 10 seconds. Shadow Swiftness, activating Shadow Step grants you evasion for 2 seconds. Urge to Kill, when you pop Vendetta, you'll instantly regenerate all of your energy. Toxic Blades increases damage dealt by Venom by 10%. Balanced Blades increases your crit chance on Mutilate by 6%. Poison Knives, when Phantom Knives strikes a target affected by deadly poison, it instantly deals 6% of its remaining damage. Surge of Toxins, finishing moves increase poison damage you deal to that target by 10% for 5 seconds. Serrated Edge increases the crit chance of Rupture by 10%. Assassin's Blades increases damage dealt by Mutilate by 15%. From the Shadows causes Vendetta to deal a big chunk of nature damage over 20 seconds. And finally we have Slayer's Precision. Now this trait isn't even on live yet, but it'll increase all your damage dealt by 5%. Now as far as pathing goes, the optimal route is pretty linear. There's not really much to it. You just go straight from where you unlock your first artifact trait, and you pick up Toxic Blades, Master Assassin, Gushing Wound, and then you're going to get to a point where you're going to have a split, and you could either go the Blood of the Assassinated route, which in my opinion is the better route to go, or you could go Bag of Tricks first, but in my opinion it's better to get Blood of the Assassinated first before you get Bag of Tricks. Either way, it's good to get the left side of the tree filled out before you even bother working on the right side of the tree. And with that, let's go ahead and check out some openers and rotations. Well, that pretty much does it for this video, guys. I hope you got something out of this. If you did, please be sure to leave a like and a comment. I'd really appreciate it. And of course, as always, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.